My name is Jascha Suess. I'm a digital artist and co-founder of Formlos Creative Studio. At Formlos, we focus on production and research in the field of new media technology. And I'm very passionate about the research part of it, exploring new tools and new media to see how the tools shape the creative process. And my art is very process-based, so I would say that the process itself is just as important as the outcome, because I believe that in the process you can discover things that you couldn't even have imagined before. A big part of my work is creating immersive experiences for stages and live events. And I'm really fascinated about this concept of transforming the space you're in. And this can be by projecting onto objects and buildings and playing with the illusion of space, but also creating musical experiences, audiovisual experiences, where music, sound, what you see, what you hear, everything melts together and becomes one. Initially, I started out with photography and filmmaking, and I always had this experimental approach to it, playing with textures, creating atmospheres by abstracting and playing with light, movement, and color. And I always explored new possibilities to create, and at some point, I came across 3D software, and I was really fascinated. But at the same time, it was quite overwhelming. If you have infinite possibilities, where do you start? So one thing I do when I face this blank canvas is I set myself up a strict set of boundaries to work within and to explore the medium. One example is the experimental short film Emit I worked on together with Thomas Nagel, who worked on the sound. It was an experimental short film where we focused on the concept of time. What is time? How do we perceive it? What implications does it have on society? And we asked ourselves the question if time is just a social construct. And I approached this by playing with different minimalistic objects and symbolisms that go with the topic of time. And I also set myself the boundaries to work within circular shapes because I think that kind of fits the theme. And we worked on this together. Thomas worked on the sound, did an amazing job, and we were really happy with the end result. So by setting yourself some boundaries to work within, even a very complex seeming project or task can be easy to manage. When I started with 3D, an artist that really inspired me was Mike Winkelmann, who also goes by the name People. His approach was to create an artwork every day and to post it on Instagram. And in fact, he didn't only post the artwork itself, but also the project file to help people learn from him. And I think this was a great approach. And I really loved this approach, and I thought I would pick this up myself. So I started doing artworks every day and posted them on Instagram. And in this process, it's great because you learn a lot, you learn something every day, and at the end of every day, you have something to look back on. So you kind of have a result every day. And this is great. So I did this for a while, and I was really happy with the results. And it was cool because after a while, you had this body of work that you could look back on. I have to say I was kind of proud of it. But after a couple of months, it was getting pretty demanding, so I had to stop doing it and focused on other kinds of work. Mike Winkelmann, on the other hand, did not stop. He did this for 14 consecutive years in a row, created an artwork every day and posted it. And in fact, he now sold the 5,000 first artworks that he created as a collage on the auction house Christie's. He sold it as an NFT, a digital artwork, and the sum was $69 million. Now, this brought a lot of attention into the NFT space, but it's important to note that the space has existed before, and this is just the kind of headline that brings a lot of attention to it, but NFTs are more than just big numbers. So let's have a look at it. What are NFTs actually? An NFT is a so-called non-fungible token. Fungible means replaceable. If I have 10 euros, I can replace them with any other 10 euro bill. It doesn't matter, and I can also split it up into, let's say, 2 5 euro bills. If I have something non-fungible, it can't be split. So if I have an artwork, for example, it's unique, and you can't just divide it into several pieces. So this is what fungible means. Token stands for a token on the blockchain. The blockchain is a decentralized computer network, a decentralized ledger that stores ownership. In the case of Bitcoin, it stores the ownership of money. But there are other blockchains, such as the Ethereum blockchain, that allow for more complex applications as the storage of digital assets. And this is what NFTs are. Now, this all sounds pretty complex, and it is. But what it means in short is NFTs allow for digital ownership and provenance. And this is quite revolutionary for something purely digital, because it was impossible, well, not impossible, but it was really difficult to prove ownership in the digital space, where something came from and who owns it. And that's kind of what NFTs change. And this is also a great concept for digital art. And it's not to say that this only works for digital art. It also goes for physical art, and it actually doesn't only go for art anyways. It can go for collectibles of all sorts. But digital art is just something that is very native to the whole medium. So this might leave you with more questions than answers. One of them being, well, why would anyone want to collect digital art as an NFT? And there are several reasons for collecting. One of them is because it's a form of patronage. It's a direct relationship between a collector and an artist. For the collector, this is great because he knows that his support goes straight to the artist. And for the artist, it's great because he builds a direct relationship with the collector. NFTs are also a form of investment, of course, a speculation tool. So if the artist rises in popularity or importance, then the artworks themselves can be worth more in the future. But the interesting thing about it is that royalties are built into the system. So if an artist sells to a collector and this collector later sells to another collector, the artist will still receive a cut forever. And this is a quite new revolutionary concept for the art world in general. NFTs are also, they are not only a store of value, but they're also a store of culture. An artwork is always a kind of timestamp and stamp of a certain time and place, either of an artist or in a cultural context. But you still might ask yourself, well, I can own it, but what can I do with it then? And there are also several things you can do with digital art and NFTs, which is, for example, have a digital frame where you can hang it up on, or there are new social networks coming up where people present their digital collections. But it's also important to note that a collection doesn't have to be owned by an individual. It can be also owned by, let's say, a digital museum or a group of people, a community that share some shared values. Now, we had a look at the collector side. Let's have a look at the creator's opportunities and what creating an NFT actually means. There are several platforms that allow you to tokenize artworks, and some of them are open for everyone and others are curated and closed. And while I think openness is very important, curation and verification are two very important aspects of digital art. Verification, because you have to make sure that the person who actually tokenizes the piece is the artist himself. Otherwise, the tokenization would be useless. And curation, because the context in which the art is presented is very important. Now, one of those curated platforms is SuperRare. And I applied to SuperRare in the summer of last year, and luckily enough, I was accepted. I uploaded my first piece called Lucid, which was an audiovisual study on the perception of beauty using artificial intelligence. I created those pieces that were created by an artificial intelligence and tried to pick those that kind of match a universal understanding of beauty. And one universal language of beauty that everyone speaks is the one of nature. We all can relate to nature in one way or the other. So by using these images that remind of nature by like plants or animals, I kind of got this natural feel to it. But then I further abstracted it into those natural-looking particle systems, which I think is this interesting mix between something digital that has this natural, organic feel to it. So this was the first piece that I minted, which is what you call when you tokenize an NFT. And I minted this on SuperRare. And I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. So initially nothing happened. And I decided to wait for a couple of months. Or wait for however long. And after a couple of weeks, actually, I got the first bid. And I was blown away. But I still decided to wait because it was not the price that I put it up for. And I decided to list my second piece and see where it goes from there. And after I did this, a collector named Jamie Burke approached me and said that he wanted a collection of 3 pieces. And at this point, I was just completely blown away. It was amazing to have your art valued in such a way and appreciated. And these works now actually hang inside a virtual gallery space in Decentraland, where anyone can view them. And since last summer, I had the opportunity to meet great collectors and sell artworks in a way that I couldn't imagine before. I also bought from other artists that really inspired me, and I also traded artworks with other people. And the best thing about it is meeting all of these other artists from various different backgrounds and building this whole community around it. And this is just what's so exciting about this. NFTs have connected people in a way that was unprecedented before, especially in times like this. But they have also divided. To run a decentralized system like the blockchain requires a certain mechanism that secures the whole network. And in the case of Ethereum and most blockchains, it's based on the mechanism called proof of work, which means that everyone who contributes to securing the network provides computing power. And this computing power needs electricity a lot. And this is definitely a problem that NFTs and blockchain technology is facing in general. And there is a solution for this. Ethereum is right now in the process of upgrading to a new mechanism that is called proof of stake, which eradicates the huge energy consumption of the network. And there are, in fact, other blockchains right now that already allow you to do this and to use the system. Another problem that comes up with NFTs are the dynamics of free markets for artists. If you leave out the middleman, the curator, and the gallery, you're kind of left out on your own and have to do everything yourself. And it becomes a very competitive field, and you kind of measure your success by how much you're selling. And this can become quite toxic, where art becomes a numbers game rather than being about the art itself. So this is why I think now more than ever, curation and community building is very, very important. In the end, blockchain technology is a tool, and how this tool is used is decided by the people who use it. In the end, it's a consensus mechanism. It's a shared structure that is agreed upon. And what we agree upon, that is in our hands to define the future of digital art.